I made notes with.
I love. Call the meeting to order. I'm sorry, I just cut you off. I'm sorry. Stand for the pledge.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What's more on my notes?
Okay, we're going to start with budget information from transportation.
Hi, Mary.
You're here. That's even better. Okay.
I didn't mean to cut you off. No, it's all right.
All right, you'll see mine is kind of a bare bones presentation, sort of short and sweet. One thing that I haven't talked about with this group in the past that I realized is where do we go? Why all of the buses sitting out there? Where do we transport to? So if you flip to the first page.
What does it look like? What's the first page look like to you, Mary?
Where do we transport?
Well, she did. She gave us 2 pages, so the
Okay.
first page.
Oh, okay.
So we have 15 buses. If you look at any of the 3 schools that we have here on Schoolview Road, for morning and afternoon, you'll see 15 buses dedicated to each of those schools. So elementary and GLP ride on the same run. So those same 15 buses are going to those 2 schools, and then there's 15 at the high school. And that's down substantially, actually about 5 over the last few years, because we've streamlined the routes, rerouted things, kept the ride time reasonable for the kids, but we don't have buses going out with 8 or 10 kids anymore like we did in the past. So we've streamlined that, but it's still 15 buses. We also transport to 14 special needs and alternative schools that range in geography from Fredonia to Holland to Amherst. So we're a pretty big area that we cover for the special needs population. We also have 7 private parochial and charter schools and the 2 main vocational schools, Ormsby and Carrier. So that gives us, if you take the 15 buses here for Eden, it gives us a grand total of 40 schools or buses that we would need. And in order to keep that reasonable, I do 2 things. First of all, we look at how we can put more than 1 school on a bus. So, for example, we have 3 schools up in the North Tonawanda area that are geographically within a couple miles of each other, and fortunately the bell times are close enough that we can put those kiddos on the same bus together. They all need an attendant, so 1 attendant, 1 driver, 3 kids. It keeps us from putting, too many buses out in the outlying areas. The other thing that we do very heavily is the local school districts rely on each other. So North Collins is the biggest one that we do sharing with. We, at the beginning of each summer, we start talking about where we're transporting to, who we have, how we might be able to help each other. If we get a new kid during the year, we do the same thing. We talk, we say, are you going there already? Can we make it work together? So we have, North Collins, we share with a lot. Orchard Park, we're starting to work with. Lakeshore and Frontier are other schools that we've worked with on a smaller scale. When I work with another school, we look at how we can help each other. So, for example, we have kids at South Collins Catholic that North Collins brings home intakes directly to their houses for us every day. And in exchange, we take the North Collins Ormsby students out with our midday kids every day. We have 1 student that goes to St. L's in Springville. North Collins goes there already, so they take our kid with them. And in exchange, we take their kid to Wheatus every day. So wherever we can, we work on those kind of situations to try to keep that number of vehicles that we need on the road down as much as we can. That's kind of us in a nutshell. We're all either people or vehicles, so that's kind of what drives our department. And that being said, that goes kind of right into the budget. Did Laura give?
She did.
So you'll see when you look at my budget that I really kept pretty status quo from last year. We had a lot of shift in our garage with the new head mechanic. So I didn't want to make any drastic changes this year. I kind of left things alone, but I have great hopes for next year. The first big one that we have is the purchase of buses. When I sat here last year, I reported that we had, it was either 10 or 11 vehicles over 10 years old. When I sit here today, I can say that we have 5 over 10 years old, because we've been, over the last few years, lucky enough, between the board and the taxpayers voting yes for us, that we've been able to deplete that number of excessively old vehicles that we have. So my goal for this coming year is to replace 3 of the big ones that'll be 11 years old at the next school year, and one of our small buses that's becoming unreliable. We also need a wheelchair bus this year. We bought one about 3 years ago, used actually, for under $10,000, that we've gotten our work out of. But it's becoming unreliable, so we do need to replace that wheelchair bus for our student. And the service truck is a 1998 Ford pickup. The guys have done a really great job of making it last as many years as they can, but it's ready to fall apart, so we do need to get a new service truck, and that's the vehicle that would go out if a bus, God forbid, breaks down or gets a flat tire or has an accident or anything like that. So that service truck is in dire need of replacement. The next big thing is about halfway down. The equipment contract and repair line, I think about 5 years ago, I believe, was around $80,000 or $85,000. So we've already been able to bring that number down to about half. I have great hopes for next year even to bring that down substantially further, because we have 2 things going for us. One is that the vehicles are not as old as they used to be, because that's when we start to get into the really expensive repairs. They're out of warranty. A transmission or something major breaks and we can't do it in-house, and it gets sent out to be repaired. And those are pretty hefty costs. The other thing that I have high hopes for this year is our new head mechanic foreman, who comes to us with a wealth of technical knowledge, the ability to use a diagnostic computer, and really dig into the more modern vehicles and what an engine code means and how to fix it in-house, because in the past we've sent most of that work away and had to pay for it. So I'm hoping to see that line go down again for this upcoming year. The third big thing that I'm working on is I'm starting to learn more and more about state aid and the things that go into it and avenues that we might be able to take to start increasing our percentage. And Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're at about 72%.
70.9.
70.9, so it's lower than I thought.
So it's 70.9 because we pick up and drop off inside the areas that the state will give us any aid for.
Yeah, so that's one of the huge things that I've started to learn more and more about, and I'm going to look at, there's different ways that we can make some of that area if the state agrees to it. It's called the child safety zone, so I'm going to be working with Laura, trying to investigate some ways that we can really decrease some of the deductions that we're being hit with.
So we
that's one of
pick
my
up and
big
drop off on
initiatives.
Schoolview because there's only a sidewalk on the other side of the street and no crosswalks. I believe in the past when, if you remember, Mary, is before you were supervisor or head bus driver, when we tried to consolidate some of the runs locally, that Jennings actually fits that because it's a county road with a higher speed limit.
And the more I look at it, the more I think we have a lot of roads that qualify, because really the only street we have with a sidewalk is Main Street,
Right.
and one side on Schoolview. So that's something I'm going to be working on a
That'd be
lot this
amazing.
year, because if we could gain 1% or 2 or 3%, that would be huge
Yeah.
in the whole scheme of things. So, as I mentioned when I started, really short and sweet. That's kind of my budget in a nutshell. Nothing drastic for this year, but some big hopes for next year. Questions about anything?
Mary, I had one. Can you talk about the impact of all of these different schools that we transport to and from when you and I decide that we're going to make a snow day or an early
Oh my
release or a
gosh.
late arrival?
You
We've
can-
become best friends, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, when we have a snow day,
Cheryl.
Are you feeling all right?
She saw the weather report.
Yeah.
Is that true?
When we have a snow day, and we call it before, it's great when we have weather that hits us in the middle of the day and we need to bring all of these kids back. Life becomes very harried over there because it's not just sending these 3 schools home, it's all of these schools getting, their parents contacted and getting buses out, notifying the school that we're coming early. It's just, we have a large spreadsheet, and Sherry and I over there, we just start checking off as we do something so we don't miss anything, because there's so many moving parts when you've got.
Being
especially
closed
special
is
needs and
easier
young
than a
kids.
late arrival or
Much,
an early
yeah.
release for us, yeah.
Early release is one of the worst things that can happen to us. In our department, late arrival, not quite so bad, we just take them to school late, but early release is tough. We've done it, it's tough though.
And can you also talk about the responsibility of the transportation department when Eden's closed but other schools are open?
So if we're closed for a snow day, nobody goes. But if we're closed for staff development day, we still need to transport all of the special needs students. So if they're placed out of district for a special ed placement, we still transport them. We also, we transport special needs. We do not transport private or parochial kids, so like St. Pete's and St. Francis. They
If
don't-
we're closed?
If we're closed for staff development, they don't go. One thing that we started last year that we're kind of teetering on how to continue, or if we should continue, because the student ridership is super low, is when we're closed, we transport still to vocational for Ormsby and Carrier. This is our second year doing it. It seems to hit on two days in a row. So usually the kid will go the first day and then they realize none of their friends went, so they don't go the second day.
And you're set up to go?
And we're set up to go, but we're still kind of finding our feet on how to make that work the right way, because everything's got to be coordinated. There aren't buses out on the road, so we're picking the kids up. Maybe 5 kids sign up for a ride and we go, and only one of them shows up for the bus, but we're still going to take that kid to school and get them back home, but we're still trying to figure out how to make that work quite right.
I think one of the things that we're exploring for next year too is on half-days is having the 6th graders ride home on the elementary run.
Yeah, we've been talking about that at the high school.
So that we
level.
reduce a run. Yeah.
The bigger concern we have is when it's only 6th grade releasing, so we're bringing drivers and buses in for just 1 grade to go home. It's not as bad when K through 5 is on a half day already, because the drivers are coming in, but that 6th grade by itself is kind of a beast.
June Regents. So that'd be like June Regents.
Yeah, last year.
When they can't run a lunch, so they
Yeah.
close 7:12,
I
but
think
they
we had
pull
4 or
in
5
6.
days
You
like that
do.
last year, and that
You
was,
do.
we did it, but it's fiscally kind of a waste to send
How do you,
buses out for a handful of
So
kids.
sorry, how do you work half days, or not half days?
They do
I work at
exams,
Baker
they
Road,
have to and
Mhm.
upstairs.
and we have an Eden, I think there's only 2 Eden students in that building. 4?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have
I only know
4.
of 1, 2
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah.
The one student that's on the special ed side, they, guidance counselor has arranged for them to have a late arrival. Is that our district?
That's not from us.
Okay.
That particular student chooses not to use our transportation.
Okay.
So
Alright.
that's on their own.
I was just curious, because there are several students, when they get to be seniors from various districts, will get a late arrival
Oh, I
approval.
see what you mean.
And I'm like, if a district is kowtowing to that, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, we don't transport to Eden High School when a kid has late arrivals, so
Okay.
unless there was a special ed need for
Right.
that student to come late, then
Okay.
that would be up to that kid to get there. But that particular kid hasn't ridden probably in 2 years.
I just was curious.
Yeah.
How is the number of bus drivers?
We need bus drivers desperately, so if you have any friends that want to drive the bus, send them over. We have enough drivers to cover the runs that we have, and we're in a good place with attendance. We've actually got a list of sub-attendants, but we're training a new driver now. We have a couple retirements that we know are coming up, so we actually sent a trifold flyer home with K through 5, I think, right before break. And
I know.
unfortunately, haven't gotten any phone calls yet, but we're going to keep trying everything we can.
I'll become bus driver. There you go. I'll become bus driver for
Okay.
you.
There you go.
Hey.
I can
Yeah,
do
that's
it.
free time.
I
I
can
always
do it.
thought I wanted to after I retired, but, I mean, all seem so happy, but I guess at some years old, the thought of sitting on a bus with a bunch of kids.
Mary does
God bless
all the
them.
training, though. She can do all the training on her
With the
own.
little bus.
God bless them, though.
You don't have to drive a big one. Any other questions?
Mary, are you going to do recruiting at the Corn Fest again this year?
We are, but we're gonna find a different way because we had to chase people down to make them come near us, so we're
We'll find a better spot for you.
She's gonna make you
We'll block
travel
them off.
through the bus. Where would you like to be?
I don't know, the Corn Fest is a really great opportunity. The problem is if we're in the grounds, we're stuck there morning till night. They gave us a nice spot.
Because you can't
just
move
out-
the bus.
Yeah, well, they gave us a nice spot just outside the grounds, but we're gonna do something flashy and draw people in because we were literally walking out to try to talk to people. And, I mean, it was a tour for the kids. It wasn't so much of it was a backdoor recruitment, but we had little activities for the kids and coloring books and stuff.
It was
But
good.
they just wanna go inside. They don't wanna stop on our bus outside.
Hi, Mary, I just wanted to thank you for showing me around the garage. I was very
Oh,
impressed with
no
everything.
problem. Glad you're walking better.
Good.
Anything else?
Thanks, Mary.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So budget for athletics.
Mary, you don't have to stay, you know. You can go home and go to bed if you want to.
Ready to go this morning?
I know she goes to bed at like 8:30 because I call her at 4, so.
Watch the weather.
Okay, Cheryl, that's 2.
Wait, I work in the Orchard Park District. They're
Yeah,
always
they don't
closed.
close,
Is
honey.
that true, really?
So, hi, good evening, everyone. Last time I was here, I was getting board approved, so I just want to say,
Yay!
with my son. So yeah, I just found out. I was telling Sandy that I'm having another boy too. I found out yesterday.
Oh,
So,
congratulations.
In July, right?
In July, yeah.
So do you want to tell them the story?
So sure.
So Sandy calls to offer you the job.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know if I can take it because we just found out we were pregnant for the second time. So it was a big commitment with that. So I was on the phone, like you called me at 7 in the morning, and I voiced all my concerns with like, okay, what about time, this, that, and this. She like talked me off the edge a little bit, and I was able to, like, obviously this is something I wanted, and I'm happy to be here. So it was definitely like, what, for an hour and a half we were on the phone that morning, something like that, 7 in the morning.
This is why I never get to work before 8:30.
I was
It's either
surprised.
Jen or Don or you or someone. And this is the conversation we had. If this is your dream and your goal, when is a good time? When is a good time? When your kids are
Yeah.
playing t-ball, when they're teenagers? But so you're gonna have a little boy,
Mhm.
and you have a boy, Jack, who's
Yep,
2.5, whom we
Which
met
some
when
of
you
you guys saw the last
Yeah.
year.
Yes.
was running back and forth in the
Well,
hallway.
he was eating crackers the whole time.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So, but no, it's exciting, and the one thing before I start with this presentation was when I was going through the process. Everybody told me Eden was a great place. The community was close, tight knit group, and it couldn't have been true. I mean, everything was great about it. It couldn't have been farther from the truth how great it was. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. From the time I got here, everyone's been so helpful and patient with me and teaching me things. So I just wanted to thank you for everyone who's been a part of that. Some of you guys are in this room, so I just want to thank you personally. I couldn't be happier being here for the last 2.5 months. So
Great.
thank you guys so
Good.
much.
Good
So,
to hear.
what
I
you
think
see
he's
in
talking
front of
about
you?
you.
Oh,
Are you talking about Don?
I'm sorry about everyone.
Okay.
With everyone. So what you see in front of you is the athletic budget that we have, also some numbers from the last 6 years. The proposed expenses for the upcoming school year as well. The administrative team and I work collaboratively together to prepare a budget that will provide our students the tools and give them the opportunity to realize their potential on and off the playing field. With the upcoming budget, our goal is to maintain the high levels of excellence that is exhibited by our athletes and teams. We as an administrative team believe that this presented budget will allow us to maintain our high-quality athletic programs and earn such recognition through the state and section. So, just starting off. Not going? Oh, there we go, just gotta use the mouse. So overall, I'm just gonna stand up, so I apologize. So overall, we offer our students 45 different athletic teams and programs, which is great. So 29 varsity sports. So what you see here, I'm a very organized, color-coded kind of person. What you see here in green are the sports that we combine with other schools. Okay, so those schools we combine with North Collins or Gowanda. That also helps us not cut a program. It helps our students able to participate in the sports they want to, and also it's a little revenue that we get in when we combine with another school. Yellow. The yellow ones are sports teams that we've had success in just the last year alone. So you can see there's a lot of yellow. They've either won a division, they've either been a Section 6 class winner, tournament winner, or they've had individuals go to the state tournament. If you look at it with the teams, you do the numbers, 41% of our varsity teams have success, which is great for a small team and even a large team to have that at 41%. We also offer 10 JV sports throughout the fall, winter, and spring, 11 modified sports. We also offer some opportunities for 7, 8, and 9. So it's 4 sports in the modified, where instead of cutting a program, or we do a 7, 8, 9, and we also can do it for varsity as well. So our participation rate, after doing the numbers, I thought this was great, especially for the fall, this past fall, even though our numbers went down a little bit, we had over 50% student participation for athletes in the fall. Yes, there's more fall sports, but still that number, especially from last year, that stayed the same. It went up even with the student body, the athletes staying the same. Winter has gone up too, percentage-wise, and I'm hoping for this spring as well that it will continue to go up with the sports teams coming up, which we'll have a parent meeting. If no one knows about it, we're having a parent meeting on Thursday for coaches and also for our student and parents, so we all can be on the same page with that.
There's a snow day. No snow day, Cheryl.
No snow day.
No snow day. And you got playoffs, so yeah, I don't have a snow day.
Just to give you a little synopsis of the success that we've had, where they go, girls softball, which is all our varsity teams, section champs. Our softball team went to the state semifinals last year. Unified basketball, if you've never gone to a unified game or bowling, I recommend it highly. I know there's one Thursday at the Eden Alleys over there. I went for my first time to a bowling match. It was awesome. Just the way that the students work well with each other and how it goes. They're actually, I don't know about today, they're undefeated, our bowling team, so kudos to them. Volleyball, soccer in the fall, they all had some success. If you're not doing anything Friday night, our girls basketball team is the 2nd seed in their class, and at 7 p.m. we have a home playoff game that we're hosting. So if you've got nothing to do, come on down. And excited also that we have a member of our wrestling team who's going to be competing in the state tournament again for the 2nd time.
Right. And he's ranked 2nd in the state.
He's in that classification. He's ranked at 160 in small schools. He's ranked 2nd.
Yeah, that's
so he's got
awesome.
the 2nd seed.
And where's he going to compete?
It's in Albany. So hopefully he's leaving actually Thursday. Starts Friday. The tournament starts Friday. And hopefully I hear good news on Saturday.
Yeah. Does he have scholarship offers?
You know what? I talked to him today, and he's going to play soccer. I just can't remember
Isn't
where.
that interesting? He's going to
Oh, he's a good soccer player too?
Yeah, I believe he was in all Western New York. I don't quote me on
Colleen
that.
knows, yeah.
Wow.
But
What a good
he
athlete.
wants to do both at the college that he's looking at. So I just talked to him today about it. Because he actually needed a lifeguard for something. So I asked him if he could lifeguard for me over the weekend.
The answer was no, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. So as you can see, this is just the past budget, the proposal, where the money is allocated, and also where we're about, last year we were about like 130,000. So before you see the next slide, we do have some increases, but the increases are New York State mandated and also contractually. So I'm just going to talk about that real quick, about those numbers. So as you can see, I'm sorry if I'm the ladies telling me. I'm just a walker. So next year's budget increases due. The main thing that you're going to see is our athletic training costs. Right now we have a contract with UB, MD, orthopedic, and sports medicine. Every 3 years that contract's up. So it went up. First of all, the price went up a little bit, and they lost some sponsorships. So that's why that cost is that significant. Last year, I believe it was 25,000. This year, as you can see, it's going to be about 38,000 to have a trainer. You know, this is a safety thing in my opinion. I've talked to other athletic directors to see what they do or what companies they go to, and I looked into it a little bit, and the main thing that they see is some of the companies can't guarantee an athletic trainer. They're hard to come by. Nobody's getting into the field. The guy from UB I talked to, when I talked to him, he was heading to Connecticut just to find athletic trainers. So it's one of a peace of mind that if we do sign this contract, that we have someone here at Eden for the year. And I think that's just important. So I know the cost is going to jump out at you right now, but it's a trained professional. It's going to be here to help out our students when push comes and something happens and we need that.
And they're backed by UBMD, which is really good also.
Yes, exactly, correct. So that's the one cost that you see. In the membership line, you're going to see another cost. Last year, we started doing cross-training, building a character culture. Again, sports, it's all about character. We brought in a program where, I want to show you, every coach in the district will get one of these playbooks that they give us out. In here, they also have provide lessons for the coaches to help our students build character traits. We also, with some of our teams, he will come out and speak with our teams. Small mini lessons once a week. And just to go over, again, character traits like that. If anyone has noticed our Twitter account that we have, every week we have also weekly winners of that character, that specific trait. So I post it out, I send it out online and things like that. So it's just a good program that our whole purpose is to build character and also to build great citizens overall for our community.
I can speak for the girls swim team. I know Shauna, the head coach, at least once, I think it was like once a week, especially in the beginning of the season, and maybe once every other week, would have classroom time to go over the things that were given to her about the character. And the kids really tuned into it and plugged into it. And I know, old school, you never really had to think about that. It was just kind of there. And as times change and things, are different in 2020, I think this was a huge thing to do. It was great for coaches and for the athletes.
And I met him, he's kind of you just want to talk to the man. You just want to gravitate to the man who actually runs the program. And his story is phenomenal, how he got started and why he does this. So if you ever get a chance to meet him, he's a great guy. Just to talk about what you were saying, Mr. Silver and I were talking about the newspaper. I haven't read it. I did read an article, I don't know if you read it the other day, about how athletes are different, how coaches, we have to adapt and we have to get the most, we may have to adapt and go through this in character education.
Is that with Coach Masters?
Yes.
Yes, Coach Masters.
And he does our Raiders response.
Yes.
Yep. He also, I know he's involved with other school districts as well, so it's a common thing that's coming with his program.
The field at Grand Island was named after his dad, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The other thing for membership that you'll see, our dues increased for the first time in 11 years for the section dues. Also our ECIC dues increased as well. The last thing, again, this goes back to safety, the equipment recondition, I increased that to $3,000, and the reason why is last year, it's New York State mandated that football helmets, you have to get them reconditioned every year. So what happens is some don't pass, so then you have to purchase new ones. Talking to other athletic directors, they recommended that it's also to do the shoulder pads. Not every year, but every other year. So I know, talking to the football coach and looking at what we have in the basement, some of those shoulder pads haven't been touched since 1980. And so I'm trying to plan ahead so that when we do, or if we do get these reconditioned, some of them will get rejected. And that to me is a safety thing. I don't want to put a kid in equipment from 1980 that's not going to pass inspection. So that's why I try to build that a little bit right there, that increase that you see. Topics to consider. One of the first things I said in my interview is I wanted to walk the facilities, kind of gauge what I noticed, and this is just kind of things that I've noticed right off the bat. Pulling into the parking lot in the back from the high school, the softball diamond. This again, it's a safety thing, and I've also talked to Dave Martin about this already. For whatever reason, if you notice, there's no fence right there in front of the benches. or in front of the bleachers.
Oh, God.
So one fall ball is going to ruin someone's weekend, or sadly other stuff. But anyways, that's the first thing I noticed, and that's just a safety thing. I've already talked to Dave Martin about it. We think maybe we can get something together before the season about replacing this for both sides, just to make it adequate. When I first saw it, I was shocked because it's if you notice the baseball field, there's fences all along the side protecting the players and the spectators. So that's the first thing I noticed. The golf cart over here, and I'm not talking about cosmetics or anything, but horror stories about how it runs. I've heard in the past.
Jack, look at Jack.
So just saying.
Jack's had that on his list for as long as I've known Jack.
And so
It runs, it just doesn't stop.
and it's problematic. And what I come is, again, safety. Our trainer uses that. So at certain times, we have every field is being used. So if our trainer is at the turf field and she's got to get to the softball field, if she's got to get to the GOP field over there, how is she going to get there? She needs to make sure she can get there fast, safely, make sure we can provide care to our students.
Does it need to be a 4-person?
Like a 4-person cart? I would say I've never seen what I've seen usually in the past. I know when I was in Egg Field, we actually just went through this, and they bought a nice wheels that can go out in the grass like ours. We had one like this. It would get stuck. You couldn't get on the grass, couldn't go up a hill. So they got something that was more like heavy duty. It had a little tractor in the like a little bench in the back, so you can put the water coolers and things like that, and any medical equipment that the trainer would need. But it just fit 2 people, maybe 3 people to squeeze in the middle.
Have you talked to David about that?
Not yet, no.
He would be a good source. His son's pro, so he might have some connections.
No.
Okay.
I'll look into that. Talking to the pool coaches, the swim coaches, when I was looking over the practices, they just said replacing of the starting blocks. So with the stories that he told me, again, I'm not trying to say I don't know what was going on, but they slip, they're rotting out. I'm not saying it's embarrassing, but what I'm saying is a student shouldn't have to put a towel over a starting block so that he doesn't slip. And that's just, again, it goes back to safety thing. So just...
I actually have an idea that I talked to somebody about. When I was in East Aurora coaching many years ago, we did this. We needed 6 updated. They were archaic. We needed 6 starting blocks. And so between the recreation department, the individual girls swim team, boys swim team, and then we had, I think the athletic department, which they didn't have an all-sports booster like you guys, like here. And then the other 2 that they were all purchased individually by a certain entity. And then there were 2 families they had like 5 or 6 kids that swam forever, and they donated a starting block. And then, we put a little nameplate on the back of the starting block. We just did that as an extra thing, but I would certainly be willing to sit down. I mean, they're not cheap.
No, I know, I've looked into them, I've seen them.
I mean, yeah, they're not cheap at all, so, and they weren't cheap back then for that era of time, so it's definitely worth it to look into doing something like that.
I
So
think our-
the whole cost doesn't land
Yeah, I
on the
think our
school.
previous quotes were over 6 for each.
Yeah, it would be probably close to 40 grand for 6 blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you get high tech with them too, but
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna go new blocks, you can't go back to
Can't put
the
it-
newer ones of the one, they probably don't even make those anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting
You
those
can't.
ones that.
And you can't make it part of the capital project, because this
No.
moment you touch that pool, you have to be
Right.
compliant with New York State Health Department, and it's not deep enough for the
diving boards.
so
Yeah,
you
that's
lose your diving board if you make blocks part of the capital project.
Just another thing to think about. Last thing, I added this after I gave my presentation, so if you can, what is it? Here it is. Oh, this last page on the bottom, if you guys really want to take a look at it, it's not here, it's in the middle of the picture right there. We had a company come in, they've done some graphics for us, so it's actually really cool. I know I talked to Sandy about this. When you walk in, you guys, Eden in general has a wonderful entrance with that glass mural, the logo, and you walk in, right? First thing I notice is pop machines. I notice things, it's just cosmetic things that I would see. I know, talking to Sandy, the capital project, we are redoing that hallway, the Wall of Fame hallway in the girls' side, I believe this year, and next year we're doing the guys' side. So maybe a good time thing we can tie into that is just maybe a little paint, just to make it better. That was something that they designed for us, just when you want to look at it. And you just want it just makes it more modern, it makes it pop. Like, I know kids are all about that, like, just looking at stuff like that.
Are these graphics coming out of the Paul Peck,
Yes.
same area?
Same area. So I know that was something that Marissa had done. So I saw it when I was looking through the files. I'm like, that's pretty cool. And the first thing was eye-catching to me. It's something that we could be proud of. It's just something to change. I'm not trying to get rid of any of it. I'm just saying maybe just update the colors, maybe the Wall of Fame, make a bigger plaque. I mean, when I talked to Mr. Peck, he said you can do crazy things with trophy cases now, and maybe, I know you guys have the plaques on the wall, but you can also make a picture and have the names listed. And do it that way, and it's just something that would stand out when you walked in. Instead of seeing those pop machines, they would come down all the way down the hallway. Those things. Something to think about. Just
Have you quoted it out with Paul?
no, I have not put it out.
Why don't you do that? See if we have a private donor. Okay.
That's pretty much about it that I have. You know, I believe athletics provides a great education experience for our students. Our student athletes are growing by learning the values of healthy competition, teamwork, goal setting, respect, and hard work. Athletics prepares and helps our students become well-rounded citizens for our community. I think that's important. Eden's dedicated and hardworking coaches, athletes, and parents are the reason that we are a staple sports program in Section 6. So I think that's something to apply. That's all I got. Any questions?
True. Can you put this up on your webpage?
Yeah.
I think it'd be amazing. It's very well done. And
Sorry, I used black ink, Mr. Suffern, by the way.
I didn't print it this fine.
And the second one is I would love for Eden to be considered a school of recognition through NISFA. Could you know, where the kids have a certain scholar percentage in all of their grades, and we get certain teams, but it would be amazing for the entire district to get recognized that way.
Definitely.
I don't know what it would take. They've changed the rules in the last couple of years to make it more difficult to do, but it would be a really cool recognition for Eden.
I think it's the coaches getting a lot of stuff done. It's part of the problem.
Say again?
I don't think the coaches get all the paperwork done.
Really?
Yep.
Something to look at then.
It'll be
That would
brought
be a
up on
pretty cool
Thursday.
thing in your first couple of years to get recognized by Section 6.
No, it would be. And I think if it's going to come down to paperwork, and
That'd
just
be
making sure
amazing.
you're on
Well,
time.
it'll be brought up Thursday.
What's Thursday?
The coaches meeting at 5 o'clock and then the parent meeting at 6 o'clock.
She doesn't have to go.
The athletic.
Could you explain
The
this?
day of the
please?
snow
So,
day.
does everybody remember?
I'm still stuck
does
on
everybody remember
Cheryl's.
Jay's interview?
It's gone, Cheryl, forget it.
So,
It's
does everybody
appearing.
remember Jay's interview?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
did Jay say in his interview he was going to do?
Have a parent meeting.
He's going to have a parent meeting, a group parent meeting.
Yeah.
With every
And he
season.
told me, he goes, I'm gonna have it in the fall. I go, no, you're not.
Hey, hold me to it.
First thing on your agenda is to have the parent meeting, and he's got it scheduled already, so.
So the topic's going to come up on Thursday, that the
And-
coaches do better job with their paperwork. That's
So
what you're saying.
So there will be a parent that will voice his or her concern.
Don?
No, it doesn't have to be on me on this one, but basically, you need to get your act together and fill out all the right scholarship paper, or the senior, whatever.
Scholar athlete.
Scholar athlete paper.
So, for instance, it's due the 2nd of March. So I've already asked 2 weeks ago, and I've already asked this week, and it's due Wednesday for me.
Yeah.
Because I have to do work as well with it. So
Right.
they nominate, they're allowed to nominate one person from their class. So it has to have over 90 average for 6 semesters, and they have to be available member of that sport. So then they get nominated, and then I go give them the transcripts, and I send it off to the section. Then they get nominated for a scholar athlete. We also can then do teams, and they also can have, not only that, we can have one honorable mention as well. So you can technically have two people, athletes.
That'd be
on the team.
amazing. Yeah.
So I know last fall, we had 2. We had Gavin Hill for cross country, and Overdorf, did I say that right? Does anyone know?
Overoff,
Yes, Sean?
Alex.
You're close. Alex. So they were 2 scholar athletes that we did have in the fall.
That'd be fun.
So,
Good.
Or it could have been Laney, the twin. Was it a guy or a girl?
Yeah.
No, it was that, it was Alex.
Okay.
Alex,
It was Alex.
yeah.
But yeah, so the parent meeting, if you don't know how it's going to work, is I'm going to have my coaches meeting at 5 o'clock. I'm going to talk about my expectations that I have for my coaches, and just simple things that I've noticed and hopefully that we can pick up. 6 o'clock, the parents and the students come in. I will have my expectations for them so that we're all on the same page. I'm going to go over anything that I think that's important to go over, AEP, eligibility, just what I expect. And then they'll branch off into their own sport meetings. So their coach, the varsity coach, is in charge of holding a meeting. So that's the parent meeting. Instead of having 7 or 20 different ones all over the place, we're all in one place. So I know that the parents, the coaches are having a parent meeting as well. So that way when a parent has expectations, what the coach does, I don't get a phone call saying, well, this was discussed in the parent meeting, why weren't you there? So.
Cool, good.
Or finding out the parent meeting is at 5 o'clock and you find out at 4:30 that evening, so.
Yeah. So this is something I'm going to be doing the start of every
Season?
sports season.
Not that I want there to be a snow day, okay, let's get that straight. What if the weather, well, that could impact Thursday, would it be next week then?
I would plan it for next week,
Okay.
yeah. So.
Yeah, because the district would be closed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so we would have to cancel it and I would just reschedule it.
I don't want that to happen, just for the record.
You know, I've already thought about it.
It's not all about you, Cheryl.
Or should probably have one more people.
There you go.
Anything else? Any other
No,
questions?
Thank you for dealing
Thank
with
you.
us. Thank you, Jay. We're glad to have you. Congratulations on the baby.
Thanks for having me too.
Thank you,
Do
Jan.
they give, because on Rhode Island, there was one bank that sponsored and they actually gave, money to the people.
That was
scholarships.
ours.
I don't know what's there, but just recognition.
Yeah.
Was there, I mean, no fast hasn't been done.
All
Yeah, it's
right.
crazy.
Some of you are doing cat preliminary, that must be fun.
Is that you, Laura?
Yeah, so you're all excited? Here
We are.
go.
Jack's going to give you 2 minutes. I can feel it coming.
How many words does she have, Jack?
You can hear it.
Okay, and once again, we have black, because we now know how much one of our board members likes black.
At least we're
It
not
just
the- we're
shows
not
up
in the
real
red,
nice
right?
on a presentation. It's all about that. So, on the next slide, we're going to talk about our agenda. We're going to talk about some of the terminology for the property tax cap, the capital exclusion, the property tax cap calculation, and the tax levy threshold, which is due on March 2nd to New York State. So some of the terminology, we have a tax-based growth factor. The New York State Office of Real Property provides that every year based on the new assessment, new builds, new growth in our community. This year's factor is .0058, down from .0076, I believe it was last year. So
Really?
it's gone down. This is a factor in the calculation, so as it goes down, we get less for a tax cap.
So last year you gave a good description. Just because I see a house being built, does it mean that it's being factored in?
Correct, because it's not until the house goes on the tax rolls that you see it. If it's a remodel, if somebody's putting new windows, new siding, new roof, that may not raise the assessment. And so you'll see construction going on, but it's a new barn, and now a barn on a farm might not go on the tax rolls because it might get an ag exemption. So our growth is very, very limited. We don't have a lot of business to help support us. We're a rural community, so our number stays very low every year. Then there's an allowable levy growth factor. That's the consumer price index. In theory, that's what it costs more to live from one year to the next. Last year it was 2.13, and that was held to a 2% maximum. This year it's 1.81, and that includes everything from home purchases to groceries to gasoline to utilities. And it also includes things that we don't buy every year, like appliances. So the
You're talking
consumer,
about just in our own home,
yeah. I'm just trying to relate it so that people understand what it's
not the
supposed to
school.
capture. Correct. Yes, I haven't bought any new appliances this year.
No.
So, more tax cap terminology. If you've ever heard of pilots, they're payment in lieu of tax. and they are done by the Erie County Industrial Developmental Agency, the IDA. They reduce property taxes for up to 10 years on approved new business expansion. Our pilots for last year and for next year are 0.
Is that helpful or hurtful to us that it's 0?
It means there's no growth, so in the long term, it's hurtful.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no new business, that's the problem.
Available carryover. So it's the available percentage of the prior year's allowable levy increase that we didn't utilize in last year's taxes. And that is before exclusions, and we utilized everything before exclusions because we need to fund our school districts. So our available carryover for 2021 is again at 0. So our tax cap exclusion kind of changed a little this year. This is the first year that we've been allowed to use the capital cost for BOCES project. It's always just been district and buses, and this is the first year we've included the BOCES. And so in 1920, our adjusted, because if you go back to last year's presentation, you're not going to see fluidity because of this change. It was $249,948, and that number's hot off the press. And for next year, it's going to be $204,693. So our capital exclusion is going down. Again, that means we'll have less in our cap for raising taxes. So this is a formula you take, and you take the tax base growth factor, and you multiply that times the prior year's levy. So the 14,894,179 times 0.0058, and then you subtract out the 249,948,000, and now you get an adjusted prior year levy. Now, if you want to know why people can't do this quickly and why it makes no sense, it could be because it's really kind of a complex formula with a lot of moving parts. We were blessed. We don't have any torts or judgments against us, so we have no lawsuits, is what that means. So the only prior year exclusion that we had was for capital. There are exclusions allowed if the retirement system costs for the teacher retirement system, TRS, or the employee retirement system, ERS, were to raise above 2%, but that has not happened in several years. So now you take that number, you carry it forward, now you multiply that times your CPI index, which is 1.81%, and you come up with your tax levy limit before exemptions of $14,997,000. I gave you the wrong one, so the number is off there because it was updated.
Which one's up?
Or are you on the wrong?
No, I'm sorry.
It's on the
Next
next,
slide.
it's on the next slide.
Next slide, Lucinda.
Sorry, yeah.
There we go.
Okay, you got it.
I'm working away here and I totally
She
forgot
was
about
working
you.
pretty quick, wasn't she? Yeah, Lucinda's like, which one? Which one?
Sorry about that. I forgot to nod.
You gotta be like the athletic department.
So
There's a difference.
if we levied for less than the $14,997,241 this year, we would have carryover for the following year, okay? That's where the carryover comes from. It's that piece in the calculation.
If you don't go to the cap.
Correct. So then I get to add in any torts and judgments. Next slide, please, Lucinda, that we know about. Our ERS exemption, our TRS exemptions, which we have none. We're blessed with the no torts or judgments, just want to say. That's not a good thing to have. And then our capital levy share, which is $204,693. Remember, when we look back a few slides, that last year's we subtracted out a higher amount than we're adding back in. So the bottom line is our property tax cap this year is $307,755 that I can raise, the district can ask the voters to authorize with a simple majority of 50% plus 1. It's not a tax cap override, even though our allowable increase after we do all this formula is 2.1%. So that 2% that when they originally came out no longer exists. So what I need some feedback from the Board of Education on is and I need it so that I can file my tax cap. Does this board plan to override and go for a supermajority of 67%?
67?
I would say no.
I would say
Why would
no.
you say
No.
67?
66 and 2/3%.
No.
60.
That's a supermajority.
We'll get written in.
Or are we gonna go for a simple majority of 50% plus one?
Correct.
Simple majority.
So that means we do not plan to override the tax cap calculation for this year.
That's correct.
Can you back up the slide?
Lucinda, can you back up a slide, please?
So,
One more. There you go.
yeah, so I just want to come back to that local Kapiti levy share for a moment, because it's a really big deal. Many of you on this board who are on your second term would remember us lobbying for this year after year after year. And you can see the impact that it's had in raising that threshold. Without that, when we first went out for our own capital project, and BOCES was doing their own capital project, we said we didn't have that to be able to use. This is, you talked about that. This is the first year, and you can see the impact that it has on raising up where we are. Okay.
And so I want to point out one other thing about this while we're on this slide is if we go out at the full amount when we get to that decision-making time of the $15,201,934, all that happens with that number, once that levy is set by the Board of Education, all we simply do is divide that out. Sandy had a real good analogy for me today, that it's a huge piece of pie that's 15 million, a little over $15 million, and we cut it into pieces, and that's what your tax bill is a piece of that. If we had another subdivision in here, that 15 million would not go up, other than
It would just get
the
divided.
factor that came through from real
Each
property
piece would
for our.
become smaller.
Right, it's just the pieces become
It's the size
a
of the
different
pie.
size. It's like, if you have 8 people at your house for Thanksgiving, the pie goes into 8 pieces. If you have 6 pieces, you better hope you have teenage boys, because they're gonna be excited. So,
And this is where growth becomes important,
correct.
because we're going to
It is
levy the same amount, regardless of how many people live here. So when you go back 20 years in Eden to when the population was higher, presumably, the pie would have been, you could use the analogy that more people were were contributing to that share, whereas now it's fewer. And on top of it being fewer, the state is also contributing pretty close to 12 or 13% less than they did even 10 years ago. Okay. You're not asking them to approve the 2.10, though?
No, I'm just asking
We're just not
the
gonna go
next
above it.
slide, which is for March 2nd. Do I check the box yes or no? And I check the box no is what I've been told. We are not going to exceed the property tax cap
Correct, yes. I don't
calculation.
know how many times I'll tell you that now.
And I want to make it important that this is not the decision of me as Director of Finance. This is the board's decision. And that could change if an anomaly happened and the board said we have to do something different. Then that could change. I can change that up until April 24th with the state. But our initial run, our initial submission will say that we're not planning to exceed it. And I know from past that our board has never exceeded it once they've said no. So then the next thing is just when it's due, which is typically March 1st. They don't want me to have to work on Sunday, so I get till Monday. And then, does anyone have any questions?
I want to thank you for helping me understand it.
So,
Vague understanding.
just some numbers here. So 10 years ago, and I'm basing off a $32.5 million budget. I think this is the last number we kind of saw where we're at. The levy made up 47% of the total budget. During the 10-year period, we maxed out at 50.7%. So if we go out at the 15.2 million, will be at 46.75% of the levy, and that's the lowest it's been in 10 years. And it's been going down pretty much every year since 14, 15. Last year it was 47.5%.
Don,
So-
can you envision a good way for us to be able to get that message out simpler? I mean, not simpler than you said, maybe simpler than what we've done in the past.
Well, it's, basically the taxpayers are paying less than what the budget's growing at. So we're gathering as many state dollars as we can, even though the state dollars have been being taken away. But I think that was '09 when that dramatically hit. So ever since then, we've kind of stabilized and, continued to take less. Even though taxes are going up, the overall percentage of the tax dollars that are paying for the school budget is going down.
Right, so can we just
That's
say
an
that
easy
they're
way to
paying,
put
can
it.
we just say taxpayers are paying a lesser share of the budget?
Yeah,
That's pretty, they are because
Their
everybody's.
piece of the pie has gotten smaller.
Yes,
Yep.
because of all the good work that's being done to get
Got that,
state aid.
John?
Front page of the Sun.
All right. And then I want to move on to the revenue, which you all have a sheet on. And first thing I want to talk about is, there's a lot of numbers on this page. This is my worksheet, so I don't have it in a presentation form because nothing is set in stone on this, because I won't know until March 31st, hopefully, what the state is planning on doing. One of the things I want to talk about a little bit is one of the plans that has come out in the governor's run, and that is he wants to roll our hardware and technology aid. He wants to roll our BOCES aid, our textbook aid, our library and materials, and our software aid into foundation aid. So on his initial runs, it looks like we're going to get a lot of money in additional state aid for foundation aid, but it's just taking expense-driven aids, which quite frankly are the only aids that I can project because I get paid next year for what happens this year. So the only aids that I can do or increase or decrease is expense-driven aids. For example, we will use BOCES because we'll get a BOCES aid back. So I can increase my revenue by using more BOCES service. Now on the governor's side of the coin, he can't control his expenses because he doesn't know what the expenses are going to be from us until he does his runs in November. So that's where this push and shove is coming for him wanting to eliminate, in my opinion, the expense-driven aids, because he doesn't have a clear, concise, this is what, he doesn't get to choose what he's going to raise.
Until after his budget's done.
What happens is he has to pay us first to reimburse us by the way the formulas are running now. So that's the problem with the expense-driven aids and why I personally believe he's trying to start moving them into the foundation aid. Some of the problems I have with that is textbooks. We are mandated to give textbooks to, and by the way, we get $58.25 per student for textbooks for the year from the state.
Say it again.
What do you mean, is that for all textbooks or just
Per
first textbooks?
per student, they get $58.25 that we can buy a textbook for them a year.
That's ridiculous.
And on those textbooks, the students that their parents have put them into a private school that we transport the student to, we have to allow those textbooks dollars in the form of a textbook go to their private school. So
But they don't get more than us, do they? They still get $58, right?
they get the $58.25. But my point being that if we move that to foundation aid, then I'm giving foundation aid to private schools. And foundation aid, the whole purpose of it when they settled the lawsuit was to make education equal amongst the haves and the have-not school districts. So I have concerns and questions about how that's going to work if this becomes actual in the budget.
I think it's also important to state is that Eden does not fare well with the foundation aid formula,
No,
okay, at all.
no.
Not near any district close to us. We fare very poorly. So we're going to lose if in fact it goes through that way.
Is there a reason for that, Sandy?
Yep, most of the, Laura can actually articulate it better than me, but it's based on politics from 20, 30 years ago, that downstate will get a very high percentage of any aid coming in through New York State. And then it works its way to upstate, and 716 tends to get the least.
How Rick Timms explained it was that the formula every year is geared in a way that benefits downstate first, and then everybody else with better political influence, or lesser, but better than us, it just kind of trickles out, like,
And we
So-
just
and the
don't have
formula benefits then the next ring outside of downstate, and then finally we basically, according to Rick Timms, get the table scraps.
it. Yep.
Yep.
Yep, and we don't have any aid that comes to us for being on or near a reservation.
Correct.
We lose a lot in agricultural or federal exemptions. We're considered
Affluent.
affluent in Eden, and so we get less.
And part of that comes back to, there was a formula 30 years ago. When this lawsuit was settled, when they developed the foundation aid formula, it wasn't necessarily 100% mathematical. So first thing they did was they gave a certain percentage to the big city school districts. That's New York City, that's Rochester, Buffalo, Yonkers, and Syracuse. The big 5 city school districts got the first piece of the pie. And then when they looked at the formula and how it should run from there down, they went, oh my goodness, there's no money left for the wealthy and affluent people in areas like Long Island. Now, Long Island is an anomaly in itself because we all think Long Island is all wealthy districts, but there are actually wealthy districts that border very poor districts there. So they got the next piece, was around that area, that affluent area. So in the end, the rest of the state gets to divide what's left after those areas are set aside, after upstate and the big 5 city school districts. So what is happening is, that being said, foundation aid never, in my opinion, fulfilled the promise of equalizing that gap. But now, because it was politically driven, how state aid is divided, it never really helped solve the problem it was intended to. And by the way, the foundation aid formula was created long before anybody thought it was a property tax cap. So back when foundation aid came into existence, you did your budget simply by, you looked at what were your expenses, what was your state aid, what were you getting from other resources, and the balance was what you taxed and levied. But now with the tax cap, now you've got to try to figure out how to cut to keep within your revenue streams. And that's the problem every district is having and working on. So right now, I have a state aid run from the governor, and I'm thinking, hoping for $333,603 more in state aid, because what I've done is, I calculated, as I always do, my expense-driven aids, and I'm saying, what do they look like compared to last year? And then the rest I'm just leaving up in foundation aid. I have no idea how this is going to work, because this is the first time we're ever seeing this change where he took some of these expense-driven aids and put them into foundation aid. So I don't know what's going to happen in the legislature. So our state aid has gone up. We're looking at an increase. We're raising our interest earnings about $8,000 because interest rates are favorable right now for the monies that we have. We were able to rent more space to BOCES, and I feel that'll generate us about another $5,000 annually.
So that's upstairs, right from here.
And then the things that I'm backing off my reliance on are some interfund transfers and some transfers from debt service, because I want to wait and see so that I have those funds when I need them in the future to pay off some of the debt service. So right now,
She's making a cushion.
as I said, all this becomes filling in the pieces of the pie when I get the governor's runs. And when we do our presentation, I believe it's March 18th, I'll have scenarios for the Board of Education so that you'll be able to see ways we can close our existing gap.
But it's quite possible that if the governor sticks to his proposal on these runs, that it'll look like Eden is doing better on foundation aid than it did last year,
Correct.
which, from what Laura just said, is not the case.
Correct.
Because they added things into the foundation aid, correct? That's
Correct.
the reason, yeah.
So, the one thing I will say that I'm planning on increasing is when we go out to the taxpayers, the second proposition will ask for another $121,000 or $750,405 to use from the vehicle and maintenance equipment reserve.
What is that going to be used for?
It has to be used to buy equipment and buses.
Okay, good.
That's what Mary was talking about.
Yeah, so that's Mary's presentation.
And so, we also have a reserve that is mandated. The only way I can use a reserve, there's only two ways to get money out of the employee accrued benefit liability reserve. The two ways are, I can go, if it's overfunded, I can go to the state comptroller and ask him to release some of the funds. We are not overfunded in that reserve. We have a greater liability than we have a reserve. Or as people retire and they get their payments for unused sick time that are contractually driven, I can take that out of there. So there'll be a $38,000 increase for the number of retirements we have this year that exceeds last year's. And so right now, that's really all I have for the board, and I won't have anything that all comes together for you until the 18th of March.
Oh, I thought that was terrific.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? I know I threw out a lot of things, and it's tough because right now, these revenues, they're the last piece of the puzzle, and I just don't have enough answers to give a definite, but this is kind of where we're heading.
So what happens in the next meeting then?
The next meeting, we will talk about benefits and staffing. We will talk about BOCES and technology, and then we'll work from there to have all the pieces will have been presented to the board. And then I'll go back and I'll start to work on putting the pieces all together into some scenarios for the board, so that what will happen is both the board and the public will be aware, if the governor's runs do this, we're planning on doing this. And then, so that everything, you have a chance to look at it, analyze it, and think about the impact. So I'm not walking in, handing you a presentation and saying, make a decision, so that you have individually some time to look at numbers and digest them. And that
Next
one.
meeting, is it the 5th?
Fourth?
4th is the
Fourth.
next meeting.
Oh, a board meeting on the 4th?
That's a special budget meeting
Oh, it's a special budget meeting?
Next Wednesday.
And then March 18th, I believe, is
because of
the
the holiday.
Do I have to be in a sacred place, or can I be traveling? Because I'm driving back from Philly at that point in time.
Do you want to be a part of the
For
meeting?
which one?
The 5th, or the 4th.
Do you want to be a part of the meeting, Don?
I can be part of the meeting, but I can't be
Public.
public as,
Right. You just can't vote.
Then you can't vote, you can observe, I guess.
okay.
Yeah, Dan's very knowledgeable. in that.
Lucinda, do you know what he's asking?
Yeah,
Is that
we'll just
okay?
do Zoom, hopefully I'm in good cell phone coverage.
We're in this room
So could you, what date is that? That's,
next Wednesday.
Next
Wednesday. Is it?
Okay,
Is next Wednesday already?
Yeah, because of the holiday last week.
so it's March 4th at what time?
I can, yeah.
6:15.
And where's that meeting going?
I don't think it's
Here, that's in
7.
here again. It's here
In
again.
here?
What
Barb,
time
can you
is
double
it?
check that time? Because I thought I saw something that it was, or is it March, the next one that's at 6:15?
It's the 18th,
That might
I
be the
think,
one.
I don't
Barb's
know
gonna
for
look.
sure. Barb can look.
So this
This was
is
in there.
March, at what time is this one going to be?
Barb is
Well,
checking.
Barb's checking.
I don't know if I can check because I don't, I have to.
Alan,
stop
we're gonna
the
have to
meeting.
send you an email.
You'll send me an email, I
I
get
don't
it, I
think
get
I
it.
can get out of here.
We'll make sure you know what time to come.
Yeah, don't do it, Barb, because we're going to
I'll
move.
check as soon as we're done.
It's on my
Okay.
calendar, but I don't have my phone.
And that's all the good news I have for you tonight.
Oh, it's very good. Thank you.
March 4th is at 7.
Yeah, I'm just, As soon as.
in this office.
How did you
March
get to
what's
read
that?
every
March
time?
18th is at 6:15
I
at
know.
the cafeteria.
They used to.
What day is that?
Everybody did this,
March
and that is
18th.
not it.
Oh, remember, I always.
March 18th is at
She used to
6:15?
read all the
Yes.
time.
In the cafeteria.
Probably
because there's a.
And then somehow you got it all the time and you
Yes.
did that.
Followed by a 7 o'clock meeting back here.
Right, that'll be a regular
So funny.
board meeting, but it's here because we can't use the auditorium.
Because of the play, right?
Yes.
Are we all set? New
Cozy.
business. We're going. That upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Kirsten McQuestion be appointed as an uncertified substitute PK through 12 teacher, library media specialist effective February 26, 2020.
Second.
That's
Any
you.
discussion? I'm sorry, totally zoned out.
Jen, that's you.
I'm like waiting.
So let me put a little bit of conversation to this one as to why it's sitting on its own, why it's tonight during a special board meeting and not listed as some of the substitutes. Kirsten is here, so we're going to talk about her. She's right here.
Okay.
Lauren went out for posting for a library media specialist. Kirsten is our choice. We just need to work through the red ribbon, I guess you would call it, through SED, waiting on the exams and for her to become officially certified. And so Kirsten wants to be here badly enough that she is putting in her notice.
She resigned.
You resigned from where?
I am a teacher's aide at School 50 in Buffalo.
So she is very faithful and trusting that this will all work out in her favor. But because she doesn't carry the certification right now, we can only bring her in as an uncertified sub. So we're hoping by April that we'll have all of the red tape filled out. And Kirsten will actually be a .83 librarian and a .17 tech integrator as working on whatever projects GLP needs. So I'm sure that Lucinda will be excited to have somebody that's dedicated any amount of time at GLP, as Lauren would be too. Yeah, thank you for doing the work, Lauren.
Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carried.
So, and good luck to you
Welcome.
between now and April.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I ask her regularly
Yes.
via email. Heard anything yet?
Yes, data. We once waited from September until April, if you remember, with Courtney Hanania, Food and Nutrition. We waited all year for SED to certify her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Don't
We're
scare
not
her,
going to
Kroger.
wait that long.
No,
with
it's going to
Kirsten.
happen fast.
It'll be all right.
It'll get here. All right, good job. That upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Ashley Buttman be appointed as an uncertified substitute PK through 12 teacher effective February 26, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Motion carried.
Pretty sure she's going to be here tomorrow.
Okay, that upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Mark Stevens be promoted to the position of custodian effective December 19th, 2019.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Lauren will.
So Mark has been here for over 20 years, and he was a laborer, and he's been, I think, 20 years, maybe I'm incorrect. But he's been working here in the district, he's been doing the job of a custodian in this building. So last fall, he went and took the test when civil service offered it. He passed, and he's been getting routine job offers from other districts who want to steal our custodian. The reason it's retroactive is it was a paperwork snafu, and we simply missed it for the December board meeting, so that's why
We,
we're...
meaning Laura and me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
not Barb.
No. So, that being said, we're trying to do the right thing and make it at the time that it should have been and do his pay retroactively.
Yeah, we want to keep him.
Yeah, we
Yes.
want to keep him.
Yep.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Motion carried.
That upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Joseph Weiss be appointed as a .4 FTE psychologist for the 2020-2021 school year. Salary is based upon ETA contract master's step 1.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, so just in case you're confused, Joe Weiss is retiring in June,
Yeah.
right? this is how well we do here. You can retire and you come back. Joe has agreed to come back as a step one, and ETA has also agreed to do that to help us get into compliance with our triennials, with our students who are identified. That will be his only position next year, is to come in and do approximately 100 triennials and try to get us back into compliance. And so we're very grateful for him in coming back. And Laura, if you could just tag team that on as the community aid that we got, that you can talk about that a little bit.
Well, the community aid is not a good thing in my eyes.
Because
They've
it's
taken
restricting us.
$30,708 of our foundation aid and saying you must use it for a community project. This happens to fit into that community aid project. So they're now telling us how to use that foundation aid, and it's to promote the community. And so mental health is one of those areas, so a psychologist is.
So it's not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
Other than now the state is taking more and more control of local school districts.
So
This was
rather
a
than
good
allowing
idea.
you as a district, Ellen, to decide how you want to use your money, they're restricting how you use your money.
But we all know mental health is a tremendous issue.
Agreed.
But at
Agreed.
what cost, it becomes, again, it's a loss of local control, is what it is, for $30,000.
But it fits.
Well, it works.
It's
Good
about
we have a
control.
Joe, so.
Yeah, and it's good that it's Joe.
Yeah.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carried.
All right, discussion. Should the Board of Education amend the length of the term from 3 years to 4 years, or have a combination of 3 and 4 years?
So this is an item that came up during the roundtable at the last board meeting. This is not a resolution for a vote. This is a discussion by Kirsten. This is a discussion by the board. I believe it was brought up by Don a meeting or two ago, and maybe I've made the question a little too restrictive. Right now, your policy is everyone is a 3-year term.
Right.
So please.
My thought is when you initially come on as a 4-year term, and then if you run again and are elected for a second term, it's a 3-year term.
But you
That
have
sounds-
to
that
use
sounds
staggered
reasonable.
things, so you don't have everyone coming
Let
in
him
and
talk.
off.
Let him talk.
Right. So I haven't done that
Okay.
mapping of how it could possibly happen, but, you know, my thought is when you come onto the school board, your first year, you're kind of blind. Second year, you start feeling okay, you understand the terminology and things along those lines. Your third year, you actually really know what you're doing. And then you either have to run for a second term or you roll off. I mean, Ellen can make,
Cheryl, yeah.
and Cheryl, I mean, you know, this is,
3 for both of them.
Yeah, for
All
both
right.
of us, yeah.
so, I mean, you're the perfect example of it.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, you just feel at this point in time,
Right, I'm just getting to understand how, the clock works and all the gears turn and it's up. I mean, I'm choosing to rerun.
So the question that I have is a person as likely to put a petition in to be a board member if the term is a year longer? And I'd love for you guys to have some conversation about that when you are asked to become a board member. Would it have made a difference?
4 years would have.
Wouldn't
No,
matter.
No, I don't think so.
Because I don't even think that was one of the questions I asked. I just assumed I would do it till I didn't want to do it anymore.
But I think 2 4-year terms would be overwhelming, so
Yeah,
I think
no,
it's a
it's
good idea to
definitely-
have 4 and 3.
you know, I wouldn't propose the second term to be a 4-year term.
Yeah.
And then you really kind of got to map it out.
I can
completely-
create a map for you, Don.
You know, as when could possibly be, everybody be falling off and things along those lines, but, you know, just moving forward, it is a commitment. It is an extra year, but it's, you know, to me, before you really understand all, like Cheryl said, how the gears are all meshing together and stuff like that, it's really your third year. And then to basically either, you know, have to decide to re-up again and run for the position, or, you know, decide to step down. You know, I just think the district would benefit better from a 4-year term. I'm on another board right now, and it's an 11-year process.
Wow, 11 years.
That's crazy.
So I come off in 24 on that one. So,
I would simply add that lots of stuff you understand because maybe you have kids in school or you've been involved in education. But the budget process, unless you've been through it twice, you really, so your first year on, you don't get to the budget process for about 8 or 9 months. And then it's not really until the second time around that you really kind of understand the terminology, understand the complexities, and really can offer some input as to what your thoughts might be. And so some of the stuff is pretty straightforward and common sense type questions, but the budget process, having that extra year makes just an awful lot of sense because the budget is so complex, getting more complex, and you'll have a lot more to add by having an extra year.
and I got an extra year of it, because I came on in December.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
He came on for Colin. So what I can do for you, if you all like, this is your discussion, I can create that map for you so you can see how it would look in the next 5, 8, 10 years of people that are currently on the board or not, whether they reran or not. Most times you have 2 people that are up for a second term, and then 1 year you will have 3. So this current year there are 2, next year there are 2, and in 2022 there are 3.
But I think by going through this process, we would have it may land that there could be more than 3.
That's why I want to map it out for you.
Down the road,
Yeah.
not necessarily.
But
Yeah.
it's out there, it's long-term planning. I mean, you're
Yep.
looking at 5,
Yep.
6 years before this would really start to possibly become hey, 4 people are rolling off the board at one point in time.
So what some school districts will do in that particular case is that they will have their policy where there might be a 1-year term. So let's say Cheryl or Ellen wasn't up for a 3-year term, they might go up for a 1-year term, right? Of course, the board member can leave on any other time of the year, and that also adds some nuance to it. But you can see, you can amend your policy if in fact you see a problem coming along the way.
The 1-year term, I mean, you don't even get
Well, it'd be
started.
Well,
extended,
just
it'd
an
be more
additional,
probably
it wouldn't be,
extended.
yeah, it wouldn't be.
It wouldn't be a brand-new
The
person
initial.
coming on. So tell me what you need me to do for you.
Map it out, see what it would look like.
As a 4 and a 3?
A 4 and a 3, let's map it out 10 years.
Okay.
So I guess, like you said, the nuance that might come into play here, if someone was to step off the board like Colin did, and I took his position, quote me if I'm right on this, I had to run immediately after that. I couldn't fill out the remaining part of his term, or can we write that in the policy?
So let me check on the law, but I believe that you fulfilled the end of his term.
The end of that.
It just happened to be the end of his term.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but let me double check that
But
for
what if he
you.
had stopped after the first year, and there was 2 more years, then you would have,
He would fill out the remaining 2 years?
Let me
that's-
double check. I don't want to
Okay.
speak without looking at the law.
That's that nuance that could
Yep.
kind of, well, at any time can throw
I can map
a
it out
wrench
for
into
you.
it.
You can have more conversation on this one next Wednesday, and then for the regular board meeting that is on March what? Barb?
18.
18th, I would suggest that you make a decision on the 18th if you're going to make a change in the policy, so that your second read of the policy becomes effective in April, so anybody running knows what it might be, how that affects them. Okay?
Okay?
Does that work for everybody? Sweet, okay. Thank you.
Okay. And discussion topic, should the Board of Education suspend the acceptance of non-resident tuition students beginning in the 2020-2021 school year?
So this is another discussion item by the board, not a decision-making or a voting for tonight. So basically speaking, yeah, thank you, Lucinda. If you look at, no, if you keep on going, Lucinda, yeah. Looking for C, that's the wrong C, though. There's another one. Yep, so what the board did is you amended this policy and approved it at the last board meeting for D. So if you can see D, they're on your own screen or up at the top. It says where the student and/or his or her parent or guardian vacates his or her in-district residence on or after March 1st, he or she will be permitted to finish the school year in Eden Central School District. So you just approved that one at the last board meeting. This is the same policy. And so, Lucinda, can you go back up to where in boldface it said termination of the program? Right there. So where it says terminating the non-resident student program, if in fact this board decides that for the 2021 school year and/or after that you are not interested in accepting tuition-based non-resident students, this is where it would state it.
That's
Wouldn't
correct.
change this policy. It would just simply put a clause in there that you have suspended the ability for non-residents to pay a tuition voluntarily to come in. It wouldn't negate the district from charging a tuition for those parents who have been less than honest about living in the district or have moved out or moved in. I would recommend that if in fact you're looking to do that, that you would go after this. Barb, we're ready to do it as a first read Wednesday night, or no?
Next Wednesday?
Yes, that you would do this as a first read Wednesday night, because Lucinda's already getting phone calls about this one. Next year is also a year where we don't have any non-resident tuition-paying students. We have a senior who's graduating. Emily Zora has been a wonderful addition to our school district, and our little first grader, if I'm right, his parents moved into the district this year.
Oh.
So you wouldn't be affecting any current non-resident tuition-based students if you did this. So please, have some conversation and I'll follow your lead.
A number of years ago, when we had conversation about this policy, I was a member of the board then, and the idea was that we could fill empty seats and increase revenue without really costing the district a great deal of money. We thought perhaps there was a need out there, and I guess there's a lot of ways to put it, but it just didn't work. It worked on a very small level. The folks that came in were awesome, but it was...
We thought we'd get the Catholic school kids or the private school kids, almost the same
Or some
tuition.
districts that bordered
Yes.
us that didn't want to go to a private.
Immaculata was closing, I
Yes.
believe, at the time.
Yep, St. Mary's and the late
St. Mary's,
Mary.
yeah.
It just didn't work. And so there's no real reason to have the policy, because there is some risk with having a policy like this. And so it didn't create the result that we were looking for. And so there's no reason to have the policy.
Although Emily Zora's dad would say thank you.
Yeah.
It's not just words. We're truly grateful that it worked out for someone.
We are too.
It's
We are
really, really great.
So I can have Kathy Dobson write next to where it says terminating non-resident student program, that Eden Central School District is suspending this beginning in the 2020-2021 school year until further notice, if you'd like, or I can leave it as it is and you would accept it for next year.
What do you mean accept it for next year?
It's up to the board to help me understand what you want this to look like, so I can bring it back to you.
I thought we wanted to suspend it.
This is your conversation right now. I don't know what you want.
I thought we were all in agreement to suspend it.
You can't
Yeah.
have that conversation outside this table, though.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is to suspend it just due to the risk that that's possibly out there. So, like Jack said, it didn't really hit the way it was hoping. I mean, there was some opportunities when we brought this on. I think it was my first year on the board, and Immaculata was closing at that point in time. I think St. Mary's on the Lake was closing as well too.
Yep.
And since it's suspended, we can bring it back if for some reason one of these other anomalies occur.
Just like this.
We
Yep.
could say, this makes sense because there's
Yep.
other
Do you
things
want to
going
have
on.
this conversation every year, or do you want it to say until further notice, and then you decide if you want to bring it back?
Until further
Until
notice.
I would
further
say
notice.
that.
Until
further-
further
yeah.
notice.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I will bring that back to you at the next meeting for a first read. which means that March 18th would be your second read.
Okay.
So Lucinda, if anybody calls in the meantime, you know to tell them that the board is actively pursuing this one. Okay. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. All right. That upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the 2020-2021 school calendar be approved.
Any discussion?
Yes. This will be the first year that I know, Ellen, you can help me on this one, that the teachers have agreed to come back prior to Labor Day.
It's true, we never did it.
You never did it.
Never did it, so.
So there'll be 2 superintendent conference days on the Wednesday and Thursday prior to Labor Day. What this allows for in this condensed calendar of next year, with Labor Day coming so late and the June Regents coming really early in June, it allows us to have a little bit of break embedded in the school year. It did require an MOA, that's why you see that up on the screen, with ETA, because their contract states that they will not start before Labor Day. It's a win-win for ETA and for the district. It's something that we were actively seeking about 7 years ago. At the time, ETA was not interested in entertaining it, and then the capital project got in the way, and we needed our time in the summer. Of course, Lucinda's already starting to hyperventilate because she's losing that week that she really, really needs. You're probably only going to be able to, this MOA only counts for 2021. 21-22 could be an opportunity for the district and ETA to discuss this again, but then you might, if the referendum for the capital project goes through, have 2 years where you wouldn't be able to touch it, because the capital project with the windows and everything else, cogen that's happening, you really wouldn't be able to come back early, because there's really only 47 working days in the summer, even though it seems like it's longer than that. And it really only occurs when the calendar does what it's doing this coming year. Like, if you look at this current year, we have 5 snow days, you have the Friday before Memorial Day off, and you've had some other days off too. Next year, without this, you wouldn't have the day before Christmas Eve, you wouldn't have the day before Thanksgiving, you wouldn't have the day before Memorial Day, and you would go solid throughout the year with 4 snow days only. So it was a pretty cramped and condensed schedule, so I'm happy to bring this to you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carried.
Okay.
Yeah, good job. That upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the district expend funds from the cogeneration repair reserve fund for the purpose of replacement of 1 operational touchscreen at a cost of $11,506.80, including all materials and labor, be approved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to point out that is not labeled a cogen repair, it is a repair reserve simply.
Okay.
Do you want to change the language that it's written here, Laura?
Well, I just don't want people to think that when we go off the cogen, these funds aren't here to still repair items in the district.
So the question, do you want to amend the language
Yes.
that's in this recommended action?
Yes,
And tell
To
Barb
just
what you
say
wanted to say.
Funds from the repair reserve fund then,
yes,
and just get rid of the word cogen.
yes.
You okay on that, Barb?
Just getting rid of cogen.
Mhm.
Got it.
Thank you. And by doing this, this allows us to not have to, we can borrow those funds for up to school budgets, but this way we don't have to worry about it. This way we set aside the money, we weren't planning on this repair, and it doesn't negatively impact our budget. So that's why we're looking to use the repair reserve.
And if you remember, this is what David Martin was talking to you about when he did his budget, that it's like looking at your phone, but you can't read anything on the screen because
Yeah,
it's
he was
black.
very good. He was
Yeah.
excellent.
Okay, that's what this is supposed to do.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Motion carried.
That upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education meeting be adjourned, the meeting adjourned at 8:35.
Wow. Okay.
I say that's a record, but it's not.
It's not a record, no.
So, agreed to discussion.
Any discussion? All in
Barb,
favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried.